said, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, Nick. And, they say you can only meet someone as deeply as you've met yourself. And I think at that moment, I met that scared 8-year-old boy. And I met the scared 18-year-old kid and the scared 28-year-old kid. And I said, I got you.
Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show is brought to you by DKI Canada. Across the street, across the country. He is a former hockey player and broadcaster whose recovery journey led him to starting ReTribe. Nick Rothwell. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show. Coming up! Our guest today hails from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. He now calls Zlin, Czechia home, a graduate of the University of Winchester, former professional hockey player. He played 8 seasons in Britain in Division 1 and 2. In the 93-94 season, he had 67 goals and 69 assists for the Wightlink Raiders, a play-by-play and host for Sky TV in the UK, host and reporter for IMG, over 10 years of recovery, founder of ReTribe, Growth and Support Network in the hockey community. Welcome to the program, Nick Rothwell. Great to have you here, my friend. Good to see you again.
Whew, wow, Joe. What an intro. I'm pumped, man. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I'm tingling.
Well, we like to start at the beginning here. So you're born in Saskatchewan. Is that where your hockey roots were planted?
Yeah, I was born in Pontex, Saskatchewan, which is just south of Swift Current. When it's Wendell Clark, Brian Trottier territory. My dad was a teacher from the UK, and him and my mom, they immigrated over to Pontex when they were looking for teachers in the 60s. And I grew up there, and my very first memory is skating in a frozen barn with hay coming up through the ice, and me on some little bobsleds just kind of trudging around. So, yeah.
Well, there's ice a lot of the year in Saskatchewan. Growing up in Alberta, I know what that's about. So hockey, obviously, your parents from the UK, but you being a Canadian boy, it was ingrained early, I'm guessing, and it took off from there.
Yeah, it was the thing with Joe is like my dad was a rugby player, son of a coal miner from South Yorkshire, and I now know through my journey, and obviously we're talking about recovery, is that my dad was he was a traumatized man himself, and he was an amazing, brilliant man, a wonderful educator, helped a lot of people in his journey. But when he took a drink, he became really scary. And, I didn't really get the brunt of that, but it was more my mom and my sisters. So I saw that, and I found a way to get his kind of love and approval was to play sports. So I didn't just play hockey. I boxed and I wrestled and I played American football and I played proper football, saying that for my English people, because proper football is proper football. So I was playing sports all year round, really, just to get this man's approval and his love, and also to kind of keep me out of the house.
Yeah. How'd that work for you?
Well, it worked out well because I grew into an athletic body, and sport started to give me an identity. I wasn't the best. I wasn't the worst. I was a little bit above average in all these sports that I played. So, and in high school, you belong to a certain group, right? Growing up in Canada, and I kind of just was on the coattails of the jocks. But then I also I realize now a lot of my coping mechanisms from growing up in a household that, like I said, it was quite scary sometimes, is I became quite manipulative, quite charming, so I used girls as a way to get attention and kind of get that sense of just connection. So the sport worked out well because kind of girls liked guys who played sports. But it also did set me up for a move to the UK to play professional hockey in the UK when I turned 18, which was it's another part we're going to get into. But so playing sport was a huge part of my life. It did give me a lot of connection. It kept me accountable, even though there were certain times where I felt quite alone in changing rooms, which again, we'll probably get into in a little bit.
Right. Yeah. It's a way to deal with the outside stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, well, I want to talk about moving to the UK. So, what prompted that move, and why the UK?
Well, I think it was one of these things where I didn't want to go to university with the rest of my friends. I kind of was an individual. I kind of liked going by the beat of my own drum. And my dad had presented the idea. He's like, Nick, maybe you can go to the UK. You've got a British passport. Maybe you can play some hockey and just earn enough money to put yourself through university. And that was the aim. And that was something that I started to work on when I was about 14, 15 years old. And that's when I really started to knuckle down in hockey and in Canada. I couldn't quite make AAA, but I ended up playing some junior B hockey. But I had problems with my temper. I didn't have any emotional regulation, and I got kicked off a few teams and for fighting with the coach. But eventually, like I say, I just got on a plane and went to the UK. And Joe, I got stuff really fast. I couldn't get a job playing hockey because there's only so many import slots. But
Right.
there was a local ice rink, and my uncles and aunties were like, Nick, go down to the local ice rink and find out if you can get a job working there. So I walk on down. I was like, hey, is there any work going here? And they said, oh, do you know how to drive the ice cleaning machine? The Zamboni. And I was like, of course, I'm Canadian. And they gave me the job. But Joe, I didn't know where the key went to start these things. I was just used to watching this thing go around and around in a circle and look at this guy's twisting this and opening this valve and doing this, steering the wheel. That's all I knew about it was watching them. But this little white lie gives me a job. And my uncles and aunties were like, Nick, go get your own place to live. So I go down to the local bank and I ask for a mortgage. And I'm 18 years old, and the mortgage advisor is cute and blonde, and I take her on a date. And I get approved for a mortgage, Oh, wow. So I get stuff quick. I'm a homeowner at 18 years old, and I've got a job, and I've got a pretty girl, and I'm getting all this attention from people. And one opportunity happened after another. It was just great things were happening in my life. I eventually I ended up at other rinks where somebody, a really cool guy, got me classified as a British hockey player. So because I got suspended in my last year in the UK, I didn't need an ITC card, so I wasn't registered with that junior B team. So I passed as a pure Brit. Then my value went really sky high, and I ended up playing for some pretty cool teams. I got married to a professional figure skater. I bought another house. I lived on the Isle of Wight, which is a little island off the south coast of the UK. I was playing hockey there. I was going to university in Winchester, studying English and history because I wanted to be a teacher like my dad. And to mention, I never drink. I'm not drinking at this moment, okay? So I never drank or did drugs. But I'm at university. This need to be accepted really kind of crept in. And, I was hanging out with a bunch of kids that, 18, 19-year-olds. I was like 22, 23 years old, a little bit older, and I was a pro hockey player. So they looked up to me, and we would go to pubs after class, and the guys would come up to me and say, Nick, can you go talk to those girls over there? So I would go talk and flirt to those girls and get their phone numbers, not for these guys, but for me. And Joe, the tragic thing is that I wasn't looking, I loved my wife, but I needed these guys over here to accept me so much that I was willing to do heinous things like commit adultery. So again, kind of going back at things, I had a lot, but inside I was just a scared 8-year-old kid, who was traumatized through some things that happened in my life. And even though I wasn't drinking or doing any drugs or anything like that, I was looking for exterior validation from things that just weren't proper.
Right. Yeah, I can relate. So you're here you are, and here I was, others like us, unable to have that feeling that we have value. But if I can get girls to like me, if I can get my friends to accept me, if I can get all these to happen, maybe I have some value then, because really deep down inside we don't feel we got a lot of it. So I understand that piece. And so but your hockey career's taken off. I mean, tell us about some of your personal highlights as a player, and specifically maybe that 136 point season for the Wightlink Raiders in 24 games. That's
24 games.
You're cooking, man. You're cooking.
I was actually, do you know what? I'd spent a couple of summers. Oh, that's me and Les Millie for the Sheffield Steelers. I had spent a couple of summers like going back and training, and I was training with guys like Radek Bonk. So my hockey was getting better. Ottawa had sent him to Saskatoon to do some dryland training and some on ice training with a skills coach. So I tagged along, and so my hockey was getting good, and I actually had a pretty good shot. And this is a thing in the UK is like, if you're Canadian or if you take up an import slot or if people look at you a certain way, you have to shoot to score. Like there's and right. You become a naturally good goal scorer. So you were like, a lot of those goals are like posting in or bar down, like they're like you're sniping. So, but you have to get 3 goals a game, and you play obtuse hockey, obtusely offensive hockey, just so you get those, and you become very selfish. If someone passed me the puck, I was shooting it. Even though I was getting quite a few assists too, but I had a good team then. And so the hockey, it although those are pretty gross numbers in terms of people looking at over 3 goals a game in 23 games, and I think I had over 180 minutes in penalties as well, so I was fighting a lot. But that was we just had a solid team. We had a smaller ice rink, so the home rink was quite a bit smaller than the other ones. The other rinks, which are normally Olympic size in the UK. So I think ours was like 44 meters by 22 meters. So you could score from anywhere. And that was a big highlight. It was like being part of a community, being there right from the start of hockey being set up. I have really good fond memories of, I think we went like 4 years, definitely those 2 years, 2 years of not losing a game in any competitions was pretty cool.
Wow.
And we won everything, the cups, the league, the challenge cups, we won it all. So it was a pretty special time.
Yeah. On top of the world, man, living the dream. And of course, also living now in an alcoholic haze, I'm sure. And how were you able to hold all that together?
Well, I wasn't really, because it was like this disconnect from inside, low self-esteem. I looked in the mirror and I didn't feel like I was worth anything, but I was always looking for more to try to feed that emptiness. And Sky Sports started covering the hockey in my 3rd year at university. And this was a time, Joe, I mean, way back when you were probably getting involved too, like in the mid 90s, like you could phone a network and get through. And I got through to this producer. I looked at her name at the bottom of the show. They started doing live hockey in the UK, covering it like Hockey Night in Canada. It was a big production. And I phoned her up and I said, my name is Nick Rothwell. By this time I'd moved up a league to the Guildford Flames. And I said, I'm Nick Rothwell. I'm playing for the Guildford Flames. I'm doing a media course at university. Can I come and watch you make a show? And she said, of course you can. But of course, Joe, that's another little white lie. I was doing English literature and history. But this little lie gets me my foot in the door, and I get on live TV, the job of a lifetime. So I'm playing hockey on TV, just graduated from university, started my own company. Left my wife, moved to London, bought a Porsche, bought a flat on the River Thames, shopped on Savile Row, and I had it all. But I looked in the mirror and I said, you're just some knucklehead from Pontiac, Saskatchewan. You don't deserve any of this. And I just felt like a fraud and an imposter. And I was like, this is all going to come crumbling down. You don't deserve it. And I had to stop playing hockey because I just didn't have any time. And that meant I lost now all the accountability I had in my life. And, I had a pretty girlfriend who was an actress, and I was hanging out with this other crew of guys with a lot of money and a lot of influence. We were the guys going into the nightclubs in Soho that were getting the bottle service, and like a lot of money was being spent around us. And then someone just came up to me and said, Nick, sniff this and drink this. And Joe, I didn't get high or drunk. I just remember going, oh, this feels nice. I felt normal. I felt like all those fears of inadequacy and loneliness just vanished, and I felt truly connected. And you know what? It was really fun for about 18 months. I had fun going to these nightclubs and having fun. And then eventually, I did those things that I was doing at university, to get guys to accept me. was I wasn't being faithful, and my girlfriend found out about it. And she left me, and I went back to my flat, and she'd taken all of her stuff out, and I was just dripping in tears. Like just pain, like the biggest bereavement I'd ever had in my life. Cause I was like 28, 29 years old, I think. And no one had left me. No one had died. I didn't know pain like this, but I do remember the amount that I was drinking and using was not a lot because I had it around, I wasn't canning it all the time. And I remember like, making a line and just pouring a shot, and the two went together, and the tears dried up. And I was like, oh my God. And inside me, I think that's when my alcoholic brain clicked into, this stuff is a solution. This takes pain away. And that was at the age of about 29. I think I around 30, it's at that age. And I know from the age of 30 to 45, I used alcohol as a way to take pain away. And I did what any good alcoholic does, which is I moved. I moved from London to LA to Winnipeg, Winnipeg to Saskatoon, Saskatoon to Calgary, Calgary back to Saskatoon, Saskatoon back to London, building my life up and tearing it down. And then my mom passed away in 2011. And the only way I could deal with that was just to drink myself into it. And I'd been drinking pretty regularly anyway. It was just one of those things that just creeps up on you, and then that's when I really drowned the pain. But the first major consequence of drinking was that I got arrested for drink driving, and I had a 3-year suspended sentence, 3-year driving ban, and 180 hours of community service. So that was the big first major consequence of my drinking. But you probably know the story, right? That's not enough. That's not enough to convince you to do something about it. I needed more pain, and I kept going for a few more years.
So Nick, I know a lot of people who are just normies, don't understand that. But you talked about how, the pain, you're in the pain, the tears are pouring down, and then you have that drink and the drug, and all of a sudden, boom, the pain's gone. And this is, as you mentioned, the solution. And that's what people, I think, who are numbers don't understand. Why would you allow yourself to get so, why would allow your life to get destroyed? When do you say, why don't you say no? And why didn't you stop when you had lots of opportunities to do that? What would you say to that piece?
Insanity. I think that when you get arrested for drink driving, right, that's enough to be like, this, you got to do something, kid. And I think it's this thing of like, where alcoholism there's a couple of, I know if you went online and you say that I'm an alcoholic, they'll give you about 20 questions, but in 12 steps of recovery, they only ask 2 questions, which is, once you take a drink, you have little control over the amount you take, which means that if I go to a bar and I promise you, I'm only going to have 1 pint and I'm going to come home, and you could hook me up to a lie detector test and I'll pass. I'm only going for 1. But we know now this, and the science says it so too, is that in about 1 in 10 people, we don't have the enzymes in our liver sufficient to break down alcohol. It breaks it down to diacetic acid, acetaldehyde, acetone, carbohydrate, sugar, water, urinated it out, about 1 unit per hour. But with about 1 in 10 people, we don't have the enzymes to break down that acetone. And the acetone is a thing that signals to the brain saying more. So, and it overrides willpower. Like, you're just like, I want more. And you're going to have the 2nd, the 4th, the 16th, and you'll drink till you black out or pass out. And that has different spectrums too. And that's not necessarily an alcoholic. You could be a heavy drinker and you could have that. But what makes the alcoholic is the bit knowing that this happens to you, and you have enough evidence that says that alcohol, yes, it takes a bit away some pain, but it has these harmful effects. And a normal person's going to go, I'm not going to touch this because it doesn't agree with me. My wife doesn't touch it, doesn't agree with her, but with an alcoholic, you have someone who has this deep inside them, this need to connect, this need for like to feel something, because they feel so empty without it. You want your skin crawls. Dry, no alcohol in the system, a feeling of discomfort, of just not belonging, low self-esteem. And you will convince yourself, right? The 12-step recovery book uses like illusion, delusion, insanity. A doctor who writes a foreword at the beginning says the alcoholic at certain times cannot differentiate the truth from the false, which means even though I have these eyes that can see the world, they see them differently than other people. And they will sit there and they will tell me that one glass of wine with my pizza is going to be okay. You deserve it. You've worked hard for it. And that's the bit that many people talk about as a disconnection, spiritual malady, just this deep sense, this yearning for connection. Many people say that's why they call alcohol a spirit. I know Carl Jung, who was studied alcoholism for a long time, says that alcoholics' low-level thirst for alcohol is this deep thirst for connection and unity to a higher power. And I think that's it, Joe, is that we're just these really nice people that bop along this world. And when we're sober and when we're connected, we're so helpful and so useful. And I think the alcoholic is in purpose a person who's not meant to drink. But we will, in the crux of feeling disconnect, the only sense of connection gives you that drink. And that's why people have a hard time understanding the ego of an alcoholic and their ability to deny and lie and say this time is going to be different. I wish I knew how to explain it to people in another way, but that's the best that I can.
Yeah, and I think that just from my standpoint, to add to that, it was like I knew that it was ruining my life, and I tried to quit on numerous occasions, but that little liar, the ego liar that lives in my head, would somehow convince me that stopping at the bar for one is going to be a good idea, and somehow I believe that that's going to, because when I think about life without it, it sounds like life is going to be boring and dull. And I just need that little bit once in a while. That's all I need. Just a little bit once in a while to keep me, on the level playing field. But in reality, I can't do that because, as you talked about, the allergy kicks in, and then it's like away I go, and I can't stop. Once the obsession, the mental obsession starts, makes it okay for me to pick up one. I pick up one, the allergy kicks in, and I can't stop. And that's crazy. So I just want to ask you, how bad did it get, and why? What made you? What prompted you to say, "Okay, that's it. I got to do something"?
Well, I laughed at even after the first drink driving. After my mom died, I moved back to Canada, running away again. Six Nations Reserve to make a documentary about lacrosse, and these people had given me a house and a car. These wonderful people on the reserve. And they said, Nick, here's the house, here's a car. Please don't drink in the house. Please don't use the car to transport alcohol. And of course, I did it. I went against their wishes. And I got away with things, Joe. And I would constantly and the alcohol starts, it's like this slow kind of like a frog boiling in a pot. You sit there and you say, all of a sudden you have a shot of vodka in the morning with some orange juice, and you kind of laugh at it and you go, I better watch this. This is going to be a problem. But it settles you down, enables you to breathe a little bit more. Then all of a sudden there's one at lunch, and then all of a sudden it's after work. And it just becomes this thing that just grows and grows and grows. And then you start feeling a little bit icky if you don't have it. You find these little shakes that start coming in. And again, folks, please, this is a spectrum, right? This didn't happen to me when I was 30. I'm now up at around 40, 41 years old, and the body changes. Your liver gets older. It starts to deteriorate. Doesn't process alcohol so well. Same thing with your brain. So I ended up dating and falling in love with someone who worked for the lacrosse team, and she fell pregnant, and I was 42 years old, and finally, Joe, all my life people were like, you're going to be such a good dad, because when I coached kids, I had a lot of fun with these kids and stuff, and I was like, Nick, you're going to be such a good dad. You're going to be such a good dad. And finally I'm going to be a dad. But this woman, no alcohol in the house, but I lied to her. I had alcohol in the garage. I kept secrets from her. I was never drunk or belligerent or anything in front of her, but I kept secrets from her. And she was like, Nick, something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but something's off. And I was like, you're silly, you're crazy, it's nothing, but she could sense that I was lying to her because I was drinking behind her back. Never stole from her, never cheated on her, never did anything like that. But these little going into the garage for a sneaky shot of vodka, she could sense it, Joe. And she ended up having a miscarriage at 3 months. And that sent me into a tailspin. She left, and I once again drank myself into oblivion. I was in a motel car park in St. Catharines, obliterated, and a police officer knocked on the door, and my keys were in the ignition. And of course, in Canada, that's an arrestable defense. And it wasn't drunk tank; it was jail, thorough penitentiary for me, with murders and rapists and drug dealers in a range where these guys didn't even give me a bunk. They made me sleep on the floor, detoxing, and someone at the end of that said, Nick, you need to, and then I moved into downtown Toronto and I started 12-step recovery, but I really struggled, Joe. I went into those rooms and I said, hi, I'm Nick, still alcoholic, bottle in my bag, crying and weeping, blubbering, saying, if you've been through what I've been through, you drink too. And just this separate thing, always being different, even in the rooms, and seeing people get it. So that, Joe, was the most painful time in my life, was a year and a half in 12-step recovery, watching guys get it and me not being able to get it. And the pain was horrendous. I couldn't, and the only thing, it got so bad towards the end, Joe, which is 10 years ago right now, 10 years ago, I would have been walking up and down the LCPOs on College Street, going in there, cracking a bottle of vodka before security could get me and kick me out, necking as much as I could, because I didn't have that. There you go. Look at me just winning at life. And people walking by me on the street, like veering away from me. And the doctor saying, you've got liver failure, kidney failure, you're living with acute pancreatitis. The pain was horrible. For me to be able to drink after a couple of hours, if I hadn't been drinking, I'd be shaking, and I would have to just take a cap full of vodka. It would make me puke. My bile, the green bile would come up, and that, of course, shocks your liver into working again. So I could drink for another couple of hours till I passed out. My diet was straight vodka and peanut M&Ms as a chaser. My delusional thinking was I'm getting 5 food groups in a peanut M&M, and the malnutrition and dehydration was just taking me out. And then, something happened, and I'll never be able to explain it to anybody, but I was living on Beatrice, just up from Trinity Bellwoods Park there. And my room looked like something out of Train Spotting. There was just green throw up on the walls, bit of urine on the mattress, sheets pulled up, it was just a horrible scene. And I was shaking violently like this. And every other time I knew I could I would need a drink and I would be okay. And I was just like, it wasn't there. Even the language of I need a drink wasn't there, Joe. And I think I'd been in recovery enough times where I think that surrender, that third step was actually given to me. It's actually, you need this, kid, or you're going to die. And I felt the surrender. And I curled up on the edge of my bed for a few hours. And then I tried to make my bed. And then I tried to clean my room, and I had some protein drinks, and I would swig a bit and then I would puke it up. And then I drank some water and I would puke it up. But I sat there and I had my phone and my iPad because I know detoxes, and I always go to a hospital, always go to a detox. But this time around, for some reason, I just sat there for 3 days, sipping water, phone right there with guys who I could talk to, and call emergency services when I needed it. And on the Tuesday, it was a Saturday, I woke up that way. And then on the Tuesday, I shuffled down to a 12-step recovery meeting called Love and Tolerance. It was in a downstairs basement. It's not there anymore. And there was a guy there who I knew was a really good guide, a good sponsor. And I shuffled up to him and I said, for the first time in my life, Joe, these words came out of my mouth. Help me, please. And, because real men don't ask for help. Real men never show emotions. These things that I was taught as a child, right? But this guy, I know now he tried to push me off on someone else, but he eventually said yes in a few days. And I met with him every week at a coffee shop in Toronto. And 3 months and 10 days, I've got it written on a book to get through the steps. And I had no front teeth. They were all chipped, and they were all chipped. And I was trying to get a job back in TV or advertising or something, and no one was going to hire me. But people in the rooms were buying me bread. Guys who saw me they were paying for my groceries, and they wouldn't, obviously they had seen me in 3 months go through this transformation. And Joe, my sponsor said, "You're sponsoring men right at 3 months." And so many guys had seen me so pathetic 3 months ago. And there was like a group of guys that came from a recovery house that would come to these meetings all the time. And this word got around, Nick's changed. Mm-hmm. And guys were coming up to me and they said, "What happened?" I would simply say this: "Do you want me to show you what my sponsor did with me?" And they were, "Yeah." And at one time at the Coffee Bean, I had 9 guys sitting in chairs waiting for me to do book work. I was lit up, Joe. That first couple of years was lit up. But I also must say this, and this is the root of what we're talking about today. One of the big things is that what helped me get it this time is when I shuffled back into that meeting, not only did I meet my sponsor, but I met 2 other guys, and they were kind of shaking like me too. And we were sitting together and we exchanged numbers. And all of a sudden we had this, and it goes back, man, it's just a miracle. It goes right back to being part of a team. I had my accountability tribe. So what really worked for me, remember that year and a half I was struggling. I was just trying to do it as a lone wolf in the rooms. And that's why it was so painful. But not only did I have a sponsor, but I had 2 other guys to help keep me accountable too. Nick, what step are you on? Nick, what meetings are you going to? Nick, should we go for tacos? Nick, let's go for yoga. Guys, let's go to the gym. And we created this little tribe and we started doing things together. And we slowly built back our lives. And I ended up sharing at a meeting that I was struggling for work. And a guy said, "Nick, I didn't even know." And he gave me a job working in construction, tearing out kitchens in the beaches. And then another person in recovery said, "Nick, on my hotel, there's a 3-month contract coming up to help me in the gym." And basically, Joe, I was a glorified towel boy, right? I was 47 years old. I was a towel boy at a hotel. And where I was thinking, I used to be on TV, and humility, humility creeping into my life. And I was getting up, I was paying taxes. I had fridge in my food. I built this concept of ReTribe into a Facebook page, and we were starting to, other people in recovery were joining us, and we were all going out. We were doing things together. We even went clubbing together. But we would do spin classes and Zumba classes, and life was just absolutely joyous. And then this was a beautiful day, sunny, not a cloud on the horizon. And this thought came into mind: email your old producer at Sky. And I did. And she said, and she never gets back to emails. And she said, "Nick, oh my God, I was talking about you last night to someone. IMG needs a guy who can do live TV for 3 weeks in North Carolina doing horses, and they want you to know nothing about horses." And I think this is when I started talking to you about this too. I did the World Equestrian Games in North Carolina. Yeah. And that brought me back into TV. It brought me back to London. I ended up moving back to London because I felt connected there, and the recovery was really good. And I got a job back in advertising, working with the company that had fired me for partying too much. But in my heart, it was like this ReTribe. So I set up ReTribe as a not-for-profit company in London. And I was going to start working with athletes, but I met an amazing woman named Dr. Misha Jervis, who's a sports psychologist. And she and I together created a program called Tough Through Tender. Because I said to her, "Misha, I want to give people a gift who don't necessarily qualify for 12-step recovery, but need to have a transformational learning program." And that's what we created, Tough Through Tender. It's like a full spectrum of humanity, of being a human. And we got some clients in the corporate world, and that was at lockdown. So we made quite a bit of money doing corporate work in lockdown. And then I was trying to get in touch with some people who had been on Sky Sports with, who are now multimillionaire, big time celebrities in the UK. And Joe, none of them would get back to me. And I went and looked in the mirror, and I was 49 years old. And I said, "You're a piece of garbage, Nick. I can't believe you blew your chance. Now you're just, you're going to just, none of your old friends want to talk to you." And something made me write down all the names of the people who I'd sponsored in 12-step recovery. And it was a big list. Like all of a sudden, it's like 60, 70 people in 4 years. You know, that's a
Right.
lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And finally, Joe, I'm 49 years old. I walked up to that same mirror a few minutes after that, and I said, "This makes me kind of emotional." I said, "I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, Nick."
Yeah.
And they say you can only meet someone as deeply as you've met yourself. And I think at that moment, I met that scared 8-year-old boy, and I met the scared 18-year-old kid, and the scared 28-year-old kid. And I said, "I got you. We're good." And a few weeks later, I was online, and I met this amazing woman, and she said she's got 3 kids, and they all play hockey, and they're all starting to play hockey. And Joe, one of my big fears when I did that 5th step was, there's a little Zach, was that I wasn't going to be a dad. And that guy who brought me through those steps said to me, "Nick, God is either everything or God is nothing. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be." And it was meant to be, and now I'm a stepdad to 3 amazing young men who I love very, very much as my own. And my wife is my hero. She's the most incredible person I ever met. And, I live a miracle, being as 10 years ago, I was on the way out, and I've dedicated my life now to ReTribe. And we moved to the Czech Republic 2.5 years ago, really because, our kids loved being close to their grandparents, and my wife is from here. So my wife's a very successful lecturer in university in London. And, for her career to come back here was a sacrifice for her to make. And building ReTribe in the corporate world just wasn't working here. And unfortunately, 2 years ago, an assistant coach in the UK who I just met, and he took his life. And again, something inside of me said, you need to really double down on ReTribe and focus on the hockey community. So for a little over 2 years now, I've had a group of hockey players from the UK. It started as a Facebook group. It's got over 750 members. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we hold a gathering for a group of guys, and it's peer-to-peer support, much like, a 12-step recovery room. We talk, we have a topic, and we'll talk through it. We form these bonds and these connections where some of these guys today would say that they wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for ReTribe. It's been powerful, deep work. And I ended up, funny enough, doing some commentary at the Asian Winter Games. That's Woody. He's one of our guys, all-star goalie from the UK. He's a firefighter out in British Columbia now. And he's one of our tribe guys. And I met, so with these guys and doing the work that I've done, I ended up meeting Luc Tardif, the president of the IIHF, in China, doing the commentary at the Asian Winter Games. And I told him what we're doing. And he just looked me dead in the eyes and he went, "Nick, you're doing what we're not doing." And that brought me to the point where I was asked to speak at the Women's World Championships here in Czechia, speaking to the women leaders in hockey. And then at the Coaches Symposium in Stockholm to 250 coaches from around the world on what we're doing with ReTribe, not just in supporting people in crisis, but that full spectrum of human performance. So that with hockey, what we're trying to do is ultimately give players, coaches, parents, and officials tools so that the ecosystem can grow in a safe space where it's no longer this power over threat-based leadership style, which we've known for basically all of hockey. It's been like that. It is evolving slowly, but we're trying to give people tools to make better decisions. That was my talk in Stockholm, was that we know more now. Children do not live in fear or learn when they're in fear. So there's no point in a coach who coaches, anyone under 12 down yelling at a child. It doesn't work. We think that we're exhibiting authority, that they need to listen to us, when really they need to be felt safe so that they can push themselves. They need to be in an ecosystem and an environment where they're to go on an outside edge and to slip and fall is applauded, because we know they're pushing themselves and they're learning, right? So these are the tools that we're trying to give coaches and we're trying to give players so that they can really learn without fear and coach without creating any harm. The coaches that I had in Saskatchewan were really nice men. But when I had a sore wrist, And I was 15 years old, and the coach said to me, suck it up, Rothwell, stop your whining. I end up playing a whole season with a broken wrist and having to have a scaphoid bone graft at the end of the year. You know, I have a partial dislocated hip when I was like 14 years old too. All that's, you know, and the coach not letting the ref blow the whistle and having me army crawl off the ice, where 5 years ago I had to have a full right hip replacement because of that injury that I carried throughout my whole career. You know, these coaches just with this thing of like, suck it up. And hockey's given me everything. I understand grit and determination and hard work and encouragement, but we need to create an environment that enables players to feel safe. And I don't mean going the route of like, you know, a player who might be kind of embellishing something. Maybe why are they embellishing it? Right? What kind of attention are they needing? What's going on in their life that they're, you know, so we, instead of like pushing kids through these, so there's all these things that we're learning about positive psychology and that my business partner helps me out with, Joe, where, like I say, like we're trying to really help evolve hockey culture so that players can make better decisions, coaches can make better decisions, parents can make better decisions, officials have tools to be able to deal with the pressure that they're under. Because at the end, this is one of our taglines, to maximize everyone's experience in the sport of hockey, and that's what we're doing. And we've got some great stuff happening. Like you've caught us at an amazing time. You know, that's why I reached out to you, because we've got so much amazing momentum. But Joe, the really unique thing about ReTribe is that we sit outside of the federations. We sit outside of the leagues. We sit outside of teams, because one of the challenges that I've had, and one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, was that people today, it's like, let's just use the metaphor that ReTribe is a neck guard, right? Neck guards. ReTribe works. Yeah. But a bunch of people saying, no, we know neck guards work, but we're not going to need them. We don't need them. We do enough for our players. And that's the attitude that a lot of teams and federations and organizations, clubs have, is we do enough. But I'm telling you right now, you might be doing the best that you can. And I applaud you for doing it. But there are some players who still have this fear of retribution, of being judged, of not being accepted, of losing their spot on the team, that will not reach out to their GM, their coach, their assistant captain, or their captain, even their parents. And that's why ReTribe is so vital, because we provide this space where we don't report to anybody. You know, we don't talk back. We don't give reports back. Everything is contained within this ReTribe ecosystem, where we can give people these tools so that they can go and work with their club or their team or their federation. So we do see a real need for an alliance and a cooperation, but we still see that it's really important to stay independent, but to have people start to understand that it's needed, you know. And that's what we're just about to release a bunch of player ambassadors dotted all over the world. And when I talk about ReTribe to them, Joe, every one of them comes back and says, this is really, really needed.
So, Nick, you're talking about players being all around the map. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, Joe, like, so my hockey community is mainly based in the UK, but with Great Britain, there's players that are located all over the world. So we've carefully selected a few of the players to be ambassadors, active ambassadors for ReTribe. We had our first ambassador, Tony Hand, who's probably one of the greatest ever players. He's our Wayne Gretzky in the UK, and he's our first ambassador. But he's no longer active. He's a coach. But we want, as we're trying to get momentum and everything, which is what the pivotal point that we're on right now, we reached out to a selective few players who represent Great Britain, both in the men's and the women's. And they're dotted all over the world, way out in British Columbia and in Montreal. These are all these British players that are playing college hockey. And then a couple in the UK, and then one in Berlin and one in Gladno, that plays for Jaromir Jagr's team. And these people have all talked about ReTribe, and they really have bought into the idea of culture change, players supporting players, being able to give not only the players tools, but coaches the tools. It's almost like a four-legged stool, right? Being able to give all the stakeholders in hockey these tools to make better decisions. And that's our aim, is to slowly evolve the sport culture of hockey, because we know for so long it has been, this power over threat-based leadership style. And we know that doesn't work. And this is now a time where we can give, all stakeholders these tools to just be better human beings, to be better to themselves so that they can be better to others, and slowly move hockey culture along the way.
Yeah, we don't respond well as human beings to people trying to force us into for doing certain things. We need a place to be safe in order for us to open up. We need to feel safe, and this is providing people with the players with an opportunity to feel safe, to open up. Because if we don't open up, we keep it in. If we keep it in, we're going to explode, and that's why you end up with people taking their own lives. And it's a disastrous idea. I mean, we just have to be open to talking about it, or we're not going to change. And you talk about mental health, alcoholism, gambling, drugs, etc. You have programs in all these areas, and tell us maybe about some of the success stories.
Yeah, like you said, Joe, people need a place to come to. And that's what is the unique selling point of ReTribe, is that we sit outside of federations and leagues and teams. We're that safe place. We do not report back to anybody. We know through the numbers that there's probably 5 guys on a team of 20 that are using some kind of substance or gambling or food as a respite to some kind of discomfort, right? Imports that are traveling the world. They might not be with their family. They're feeling a little bit empty inside. Gambling is on the rise because you can't smell that on the breath. But people are taking things like kratom and other herbal substances to try to get this disconnection, or to try to feel connected. So roughly we know, 25% of players on a team are going to be struggling with something, and they do not want to report to an assistant captain, a captain, a coach, a GM. We just know they don't want to report. Maybe a couple will every once in a while. They'll feel safe enough to, but that fear of losing your spot, of being judged, of not being accepted, of being knocked down a line, of even being fired because you go to your coach saying, I just gambled away my week's wages. And so that's why ReTribe is so important, is that we provide that safe place that doesn't report, non-judgmental space where guys have been there before. So there's a bunch of guys in our group who've been there. That's why the peer-to-peer support is so important. As you know, when someone who's not a therapist or a psychologist or a psychotherapist is listening to you, you tend to kind of feel a little bit more safe and more honest with what you're trying to share. So that's really, really important. And the success stories that we've had are, we've had, like I say, guys who say they wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for ReTribe. And then we've had guys who have come to us with gambling challenges and alcohol use. And, one of them's just celebrated 2 years of sobriety. Another one just celebrated a year of sobriety. And there are new guys coming along all the time that are just getting there a day at a time. So the success is there. And that's why I reached out to you, Joe, is because, we need people to understand what we're doing. We're not disruptors. We're people who want to work, in the hockey ecosystem. Again, just to give people tools to make better decisions. Because let's say on the crisis side of things, there are guys who are thinking about taking their lives. We can't save that person, right? If someone's going to make that decision, they're going to make that decision. But we can give people tools to make better decisions that will reduce harm to them and reduce harm to others. And that's our aim, is to help people make better decisions. And we've got a track record of doing it now for a couple of years. And that's why I say we've been recognized by the IIHF, and we're working closely with some people in the UK, and we're about to launch these ambassadors who've come on board because they really believe. Every single one of the person that I've asked, they've all said to me, Nick, this is needed. And that is enough. When you have players from all the way from British Columbia to the Czech Republic representing different levels of hockey, but pretty elite level hockey, all saying that this is enough, this is needed, then we know we can go back to the GMs and the owners who have told me face to face, Nick, we do enough. And that's my challenge to people, is that bless you, you are doing as much as you can and really appreciate it. But however much you do, players will still want somewhere like ReTribe to come to. And that's the work that we're doing. And that's why it's so important, that I come on here and tell people that we're here for you.
Well, you got Luc Tardif on side from the IIHF. What about the NHL? Any bites from there yet?
So, I, again, just through kind of old context, Glenn Adamo was the head of broadcasting at the NHL. He's just been inducted to the Broadcasting Hockey Hall of Fame. And this is something that I've sent off to Bill Daly and Marty Walsh. And hopefully this will open up an avenue again for them to be able to say that, even with associations and unions, players still, they do such great work, but we can enhance the work that we do. The thing that our unique selling point is that we create these tribes of accountability, so it's tribes within tribes that then incentivize guys to be able to reach for help, to be able to use the programs that are available. Because I know that in the corporate world, let's say an HR department might put on a workshop with regards to substance use in the workplace, and they'll probably get 1% uptake. But through the creation of tribes and accountability, and incentivizes people to do stuff. And in our experience, we get that 1% up to 90%, where people, going back to my story, you don't want to let your tribe down. So you're going to actually do the things that are provided. And the NHL, PA, they provide, and their assistance program provides some great work, but working alongside someone like ReTribe will increase the uptake and the outreach of the impact that they can do, plus the stuff that we're doing. Fingers crossed, we'll be having some more conversations with those governing bodies and the associations.
Beautiful. One of the great messages you see at 12-step recovery rooms everywhere is you are no longer alone, and it's really important for all of us to understand that, isn't it?
Yeah, you're no longer alone, Joe. And I think that obviously my story is my story and your story is your story. And I know we have some incredibly tragic and things that have happened to us in our lives, but that doesn't mean that if what I've talked about hasn't resonated with you or hasn't happened to you. I do believe, I never knew it when I named ReTribe, the depth in it, in the fact that for tens of thousands of years, this species of human being, right? We're part of hunter-gatherer tribes where we had purpose and belonging and accountability. The purpose was in the tribe wasn't just for enjoyment. It was for the tribe's survival. It was deep work where inside of us is like an imprint, a DNA, an innate skill. And in today's modern world, we may have forgotten that. We may have forgotten how we've used that. And that's why a lot of people feel icky and stuck. And you don't have to be on the spectrum of alcoholism. You could be right up at I want to perform at a level that I never thought possible. And I believe through what we do, we tap into this inner resource. Let's just say for decades or for millennia, or centuries, we'll say for centuries, we've been burning a coal-fired power plant in our gut. And it works, it gives us energy, but it also has toxins and creates some harm. And behind that is a power source where we built the pyramids and we've forgotten. So that means that Graham Hancock says it, we're a species with collective amnesia. So we've forgotten our humanness, Joe. We've forgotten what it's like to be a human. We live in this world of Instagram and this and that, and trying to portray a certain image, and it's hyper focused on people like us, and we are hyper fear driven, and then we turn to alcohol as a coping mechanism and as a solution. But for so many other people, 90% of the population still feeling some discomfort, still feeling some ickiness, and I'm saying that ReTribe is more than just, a player support and growth network. We're a movement, a movement of remembering our humanness, remembering of what it's taken to get to what we are here today. You hear a lot of guys blame, back in the old days, Joe, like the old school coaches. I'm saying, let's go old days, right? Let's go pyramids, way back. Pyramids, like we've forgotten. So in us is that power. And I believe that community, connection, and accountability are the essence of bringing that out as, again, not in a harmful power over way, but in a power up community, holding hands kind of way.
Yeah, this, another thought that came to me as we were talking here is this idea that somehow I wanted to do it myself, like, pull up your boots strings, suck it up, and the language that we hear. It's like, it's also been said by, I think it might have been Einstein, but I'm not sure, said, how do we expect to fix a sick brain with the same brain that created the sickness? In other words, we have to get out of ourselves and out of here and get into here somehow to fix this thing. And if we're stuck in here and we can't get out of here, it's kind of a lonely place and a destitute place, really. So
the ego is we're smart people, but we don't have to do it all on our own. And I think I love it in 12-step recovery. They say it's the furthest but the shortest journey you ever make, and it's living from here to here, right? It's moving. Just start living in our hearts and our community and our fellow people around us, and stop living up in here and all of our wants and needs, and just let go, and things can be beautiful.
Things can be beautiful. And thank you for doing this, Nick. And once again, the website is retribecollective.com. Instagram, you can reach Nick at Mr. Nick Rothwell. LinkedIn, Nick Rothwell. Facebook, Nick Rothwell. Nick, we want to thank you for taking this time to join us, and good luck with ReTribe. This is awesome.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you for your platform. I really appreciate it, and I miss you, man. I miss you. You were one of the first people to really believe in this 9 years ago, when we shook hands in that little office. So I remember it. I remember your support, and I am very grateful for everything you do.
Thank you, brother. All right, when we come back, Reggie Leach talks about his recovery story. More after this. In 1992, the best locally owned restoration companies came together with one goal: to make disaster recovery better for Canadians. And to this day, DKI remains one of the only 100% Canadian-owned disaster restoration groups in the market. Fire, flood, or storm damage. When things go wrong, the right help makes all the difference. With the right tools and local expertise, we handle everything from emergency response to full-scale restoration, getting homes and businesses back on track the right way. Because a home is more than four walls, a business is more than a building, and recovery is about more than repairs. When you choose DKI, you're choosing a company that's put Canada first since 1992. Locally owned, nationally backed, Canadian through and through. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center. Saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Hearing loss doesn't have to mean missing out. At Hear Canada, we help you take charge with a complimentary hearing assessment, because confidence starts with clarity. Discover hearing aids, accessories, and expert care at your local hearing center. Not sure where to start? Our Hearing Health Guide has the basics for you or a loved one. It worked for us. Book your free assessment today at hearcanada.com. Conditions may apply.
And so what I did is that I, believe it or not, I went and skated for a month. Got myself in better shape. And then I finally realized, I says, I can't do this because of what I learned in rehab. So I talked to Clark, and Billy was there at the time. And I said, guys, I can't do this. I learned in rehab that I have to stay away from, what got me here and stuff like that. And hockey got me to where got me into the rehab thing. And then I would be playing with a bunch of young kids and everything else. And I wouldn't be in the right environment at that time. And that's what happened. And from there, when I used to do a lot of celebrity golf tournaments or anything with what's going on at that time, my best friends at the time were, Bob Daly, Horace Kinderchuk, Clarkie, and all the alumni guys. They would say, "Reg, are you going to this event today?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "We'll pick you up." They take me to the event. They take me home. So they sort of but one thing about being in rehab is that you got to have a support system. I don't care who you are. If you don't have a great support system, your life's not going to get any better. And those are the things that I had at the time. I had Bernie Perron around at the time. And so every event I went to, they were there. They watched me. They made sure I got home. And that's what you need. You need people to push you on the right track. And those are the guys that I drank with all my life. And those are the guys that actually babysat me and put me in the right direction. And I give all these guys all the credit in the world for helping me out for those 2 or 3 years that they were around. And after that, I always said that the second and third year coming out of rehab is the hardest because your thinking is back. You say, "Oh, I can go into the bars now. I can hang out with my friends and stuff. Oh, maybe I can have one beer now." But you can't do that because of the way that alcohol and drugs works. That's one of the things I have learned.
One is too many, and 1,000 is not enough. I went to rehab 7 years later, and it was the same thing. You got to change your playmates, and but there are people who are good friends who are there for your best interests, and those are the people that you can rely on and trust. And of course, my social circle changed as a result of recovery, the people that I hang around with today are a lot of them vast.
Discover the secret to timeless vitality at Renew Medical Center in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Our specialists unravel the science of aging, tailoring plans to defy its effects. Experience cutting-edge regenerative therapies such as stem cells and exosomes, addressing aging at its core.
It's a wonderful spot, and I highly recommend it for whatever you may need, whether you just want to feel better, you want to look better, have basically a quality of life, just to ramp it up a little bit as we age.
Liberate yourself from aging-related concerns, where accountability, technology, and passion for regenerative medicine converge. Begin your path to peak health and wellness with us. Schedule your appointment today at renewpv.com and elevate your quality of life.
Parents, what's the biggest fear for kids 10 to 14? A future they think they can't handle. At Believe, Become, Be You, we know confidence in the future is a habit we can build. Our course doesn't just prepare kids for the future, it seeds them with skills they will use now. For a limited time, the I Believe in Me Foundation is offering the first 1,000 kids and their parents 1 year free access. This priceless opportunity will save you over $2,000. This isn't just a course. It's a journey in developing life-enhancing skills that will grow with your child, fostering gritty minds, creative futures, and better bonds. Get signed up now at BelieveBecomeBeYou.com. That's BelieveBecomeBeYou.com.
And we want to thank all the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. We highly recommend them all. Thank you for your support of Canadian sports. A reminder that the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, wherever you get your podcasts from. Also, check out our past shows on YouTube. All of the excellent shows are on there. Clips, shorts. Like and subscribe. It's absolutely free. And our socials, they are at Joe Swiss Tilley on Instagram and Threads, Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show on Facebook. We are not on X. Thanks once again to Nick Rothwell for joining us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. Let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. Joe Tilley here. My wife Penny Claire and I recently took an amazing trip to Egypt and Jordan with Trip Oppo. And here are our top 10 must-dos. Last but not least, we relaxed at a luxury resort and took a dip in the famous Dead Sea. This beautiful resort was a perfect way to cap off our incredible adventure in Egypt and Jordan. After days of exploring ancient ruins and bustling markets, it was wonderful to just kick back, put on a little mud, and soak up the sun by the Dead Sea. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the amazing cuisine in Egypt and Jordan. Don't forget to try the delicious local food like mouth-watering Egyptian barbecue. And the best part is that our Trip Oppo tour includes almost all of the meals, so you can indulge in the local cuisine without worrying about opening your wallet. I would highly recommend that you book your next trip through Trip Oppo. Call them today. Rooted in 60 years of tradition, Sleepy Hollow is a private golf club with a friendly community of members just minutes from Toronto. With mature trees and rolling fairways, Sleepy Hollow provides a challenging and enjoyable experience for passionate golfers. Enjoy great golf, amazing dining, and a picturesque patio second to none. Visit sleepyhollowcountryclub.com.